Everyone shouts, everyone wants to be heard, but no one, absolutely no one, wants to listen. Worse yet, no one can stand silence, because silence is uncomfortable. It exposes, it reveals, it offers no escape. Now tell me, how many times have you responded impulsively? How many times have you regretted speaking too much? How many times has your need to take a stand put you in a position of weakness? This is not a coincidence. This is conditioning. You were taught that speaking is power, that silence means consent, that if you don't react, you are being weak. They lied to you. Nietzsche, one of the most dangerous thinkers in history, saw this the opposite way. For him, true power is not in speaking. It is in restraint. It is in self-mastery, in silence filled with intention. Because silence, when used wisely, is a weapon, and one of the most lethal. He said that the will to power, this vital force that drives human beings, does not manifest in those who shout the loudest, but in those who remain unshaken in the face of chaos. While everyone drowns in words, the true master observes, waits, calculates, and when he decides to speak, the world listens. This video is not just about Nietzsche. It is about you, about what you have been avoiding to face within yourself, about the fear you feel when staying silent with your own thoughts, about how your need to speak, to be validated, may be keeping you weak, dependent, manipulable. It's a tough conversation, direct, but necessary. So, before we continue, I challenge you. Stay with me until the end without interrupting this silence that begins to form within you, because what you are going to hear today may not be something you are ready to listen to, but it is exactly what you need. Nietzsche was not just any philosopher. He did not write to please, much less to be easily understood. He wrote, as one throws knives, not to kill, but to awaken. And one of his most powerful, yet often misunderstood ideas is the will to power. Many people think this will pertains to domination over others, imposition, external control. But Nietzsche was talking about something much deeper, the mastery over oneself. True strength, according to him, is the one that allows you not to react. Yes, that's right, not to react. The modern world associates power with quick action, immediate response, constant readiness. But Nietzsche knew that this is merely a reflection of an enslaved mind, dominated by impulses, by the need to prove one's worth in the eyes of others. The true Übermensch, the Overman, is the one who has transcended this compulsion. He does not react automatically because he is no longer a hostage to his own vanity. He does not need to explain himself, does not need to defend himself, because he is already enough. Reacting most of the time is surrendering. It is demonstrating that the other has access to your emotions, that they can unbalance you, that they can elicit an immediate response from you. And Nietzsche teaches us that by yielding to reaction, you reveal your weaknesses, your wounds, your insecurities. Silence, on the other hand, is a shield, but not a passive shield, a shield of presence, of firmness, of a mind that knows that true control is internal. Do you want to have power? Then learn to contain. Learn to observe chaos without being dragged by it. Because while others waste energy trying to win battles that need not exist, you strengthen yourself in stillness. And it is in this space of containment, where impulse is mastered, that true power is born. But this raises an uncomfortable question. Why do we have such difficulty remaining silent? Why does noise seduce us even when it destroys us? In the next part, we will dive into the psychological roots of silence and what exactly noise is trying to hide. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Have you ever noticed how silence bothers people? How, in a conversation, a simple longer pause creates discomfort? How the sound of nothing becomes unbearable? when we are alone with our own thoughts. This is not by chance. Silence has a brutal psychological power. It reveals. And human beings, deep down, are terrified of what can be revealed when everything around them falls silent. In the absence of noise, there is no distraction. Without distraction, what you hide from yourself begins to emerge. Your insecurities, your fears, your guilt, your frustrations, everything that daily noise helps to push under the rug. Talking too much, being constantly busy, reacting all the time, are forms of anesthesia, and you don't even realize it. Modern psychology explains that our minds have been shaped to flee from emotional discomfort. We react, we talk, we fill every space with words, music, notifications, anything that keeps us away from the abyss of inner silence. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists, and what do we resist the most? Confronting our own emptiness." Nietzsche knew this. He understood that modern humanity is sick, not from an excess of pain, but from an excess of distraction, from being lost in empty discourse, in cheap opinions, in ego battles that serve only to feed a superficial identity. And silence, it breaks this illusion. It forces you to face who you really are, without the veneer of words. That's why true silence, the kind that comes from awareness, is so powerful. It demands courage. Being silent is not passivity. It is resistance. It is rebellion against a world that has taught you that value lies in what you say, not in who you are. Silence breaks this cycle. It paralyzes the social game. It returns your sovereignty over yourself. But here's the key. Silence, by itself, is not enough. It needs to be directed, channeled. It needs to be strategic. In the next part, you will understand how silence can be used as a weapon, not to attack, but to dominate, to conquer. It's time to learn the power of strategic silence. What separates a silent fool from a silent master? Intention. The former is silent out of fear, the latter out of mastery. And here lies one of the harshest truths about power. Those who do not master their own silence will never master anything. Nietzsche did not see silence as an escape. For him, being silent was a movement of superiority, a form of affirmation of the will to power. The silence of the Übermensch, the overman, is not timid, not withdrawn, and certainly not insecure. It is calculated. It is a tactic. He does not fall silent out of submission, but because he has already understood that those who talk all the time are selling themselves cheap, and those who react too quickly reveal their own emotional map to the enemy. Let's be clear. In a confrontation, those who speak the most are at a disadvantage. They are explaining too much, justifying too much, showing too much. Silence, when used precisely, becomes a mirror. The other begins to speak for you, to project, to destabilize themselves. They try to fill the void with words, but all they manage to do is reveal their own fragility. Have you ever seen a leader who doesn't need to raise their voice, yet still dominates the room? Have you ever been in front of someone who, with a single glance or a prolonged silence, made you rethink everything you were about to say? That is the power of strategic silence. It creates tension. And tension is the territory of influence. You don't need 1,000 arguments when you master the time and space of a conversation. When you control the rhythm, when you decide when to speak, and most importantly, when not to speak. In social psychology, this is known as non-verbal status communication. Individuals with a greater perception of power speak less, take longer pauses, and measure each word as if it were gold. Because it is. They do not try to convince. They make others doubt themselves. This is not a gift. This is technique. And Nietzsche understood this intuitively. Silence is not absence. It is amplified presence. But for this weapon to work, you need something prior, a firm foundation, a space where silence is not empty, but dense. And this only arises in one place, in conscious solitude. In the next part, we will explore why solitude is not the enemy of the strong human being, but the cradle of their transformation, and how silence truly becomes powerful when it arises from an internal and impenetrable place. Most people fear loneliness as if it were a sentence. They avoid it, disguise it, anesthetize it. They fill every minute with stimulation, every space with company, every silence with noise. Because being truly alone means facing oneself without distractions. And this, for many, is unbearable. But Nietzsche saw loneliness through a different lens, not as punishment, but as a privilege. As a sacred space where the spirit strengthens, where individuality ceases to be a draft and begins to become a masterpiece. He who cannot endure solitude does not love freedom, he wrote. And that phrase cuts deep, because deep down, everyone claims to want to be free. But freedom requires a strength that few are willing to develop. The ability not to depend on the validation of others to exist. The courage to be whole, even in the absence of witnesses. The silence that arises from voluntary solitude is not empty. It is alchemy. It is in this space that you begin to hear something that the rush of life never allowed you to. Your own voice, your true needs, your unresolved anxieties, your deepest desires. Everything that routine has stifled, everything that society has stifled, everything that you yourself have avoided. Loneliness is the laboratory where the true self begins to emerge, stripped of masks, disconnected from external expectations. Nietzsche believed that the superior spirit is recognized by its ability to endure isolation. Because in isolation, it does not break, it reveals itself. It does not weaken, it reconstructs itself. The ordinary man flees from loneliness because it confronts him with his own internal chaos. The strong man seeks it because he knows that only by diving into this chaos does he discover inner order. And there is a crucial detail. It is from this solitude that strategic silence, the one we spoke of earlier, gains real density. Because it is not just about being silent to appear powerful. It is being silent because you have already won within. Because there is no longer desperation for acceptance, for visibility, for response. Silence now is not a shield, it is an extension of your presence. But there is something even deeper. Silence, when it comes from conscious solitude, not only protects, it heals, it cleanses, it removes what is unnecessary, dissolves what was trapped, reveals what was hidden. It makes everything that is noise die from exhaustion. However, there is a point where this force intensifies even more. When silence becomes not just a refuge, but a language. A silent scream that echoes louder than any word. In the next part, we will explore why silence at certain moments speaks louder than any speech, and how to make it your most powerful message. If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down Jung's core ideas and gives you tools to understand yourself more deeply. Link is in the pinned comment. There are moments when silence is not just the absence of sound, it is absolute presence. It occupies space like an invisible giant, suffocating the environment, disarming egos, tearing off masks. It imposes itself without needing to raise its voice. And when that happens, there is no discourse that can confront it. Because while words can be contested, true silence is uncontestable. Nietzsche understood this with brutal clarity. He knew that there is a force in omission that destroys more than any argument. Well-placed silence is a denial, an affront, a verdict. When you choose not to respond, you are not just abstaining. You are saying, with brutal elegance, You do not deserve my energy. This is not arrogance, it is hierarchy. In a world where everyone is desperate to be heard, those who choose not to speak automatically elevate themselves. They do not compete, they dominate. And that is why well-used silence is one of the sharpest expressions of psychological power. Think of a discussion. When someone falls silent in the face of provocation, the other becomes desperate. They try to poke, they try to pull, they try to force a reaction. Because silence reveals something that most fear, that the other is at peace. And there is no more powerful weapon than serenity in the face of an attempted attack. Silence becomes a mirror. It reflects back to the other their own lack of control, their own ridiculousness, their own anxiety. But be careful. This is not about being silent out of omission or cowardice. It is about knowing that you have the power to destroy the other, and choosing not to do so, because you have already won. And this victory is invisible to shallow eyes, but deeply felt by those who try to hurt you. Silence also has another role. It amplifies what is said. A word placed in the midst of a long silence carries a weight that no lengthy phrase would have. It is like a precise strike after a long pause. It impacts more. It marks more. Nietzsche said that words are merely symbols for the relationships of things to each other and to us. Silence, in turn, is the symbol of the unattainable, of that which is beyond language. It is the territory of those who no longer need to justify themselves. But there is a final stage where this power reaches its most refined form, when silence is not just a weapon, it is identity, when it becomes your way of existing in the world, when you master the art of silence, not as one who hides, but as one who has transcended the need to prove anything. And it is precisely here that the essence of what Nietzsche called true strength resides, the power that is not displayed, but felt. In the last part of this video, we will close this journey by revealing to you what it truly means to live as someone who carries silence as a symbol of power. And we will ask you a final question that you may never have the courage to answer. Are you ready for that? Silence is not for everyone. It demands something that few are willing to develop, inner solidity. Because being silent while the world screams is an act of war. A war against the ego, against the addiction to validation, against the impulse to react to everything that pokes us. And that's why most fail. Most talk too much, react too much, expose too much, desperately trying to prove a worth they have not yet found within themselves. Nietzsche knew, those who need to explain all the time have already lost. Those who need to defend themselves against everything are still not at peace with anything. True power is silent because it already is. It does not seek approval. It does not rush. It does not need to convince. And when you reach that point, when silence ceases to be an effort and becomes your natural state, something changes. People listen to you differently. They look at you differently. They feel your presence without you saying a single word. This is not mysticism. It is psychology. It is energy. It is mastery. But don't be fooled. This path is lonely. It requires you to swim against the current of urgency, haste, and collective hysteria. It demands that you endure the discomfort of emptiness, until you discover that the emptiness was actually full of you all along. And that's when everything changes. You stop reacting impulsively and start acting with intention. You speak less, but when you do, you change the environment. You stop chasing being heard, because you understand that those who have something truly to say do not need to chase an audience. Now tell me, will you continue to get lost in the noise, or will you learn to use silence as a weapon? Will you keep giving your power to anyone who provokes you, or will you regain control of your own mind? If this video challenged you, if it made you confront something within yourself, I want you to comment down below. I choose silence. Just that. Those who understand will know. Those who do not understand, it doesn't matter. And if you are ready to continue this transformation, don't stop here. The next video is also important, much more than you imagine, because your evolution does not wait, and the world needs your strength in silence.